So, Leena, I am absolutely delighted to have you on Filme Shilmy. I think it's been quite some time since we've been wanting to talk about, the Burari Deaths documentary that you've made on Netflix. Uh, I mean, it's changed me as a person, Leena. I mean, just watching it as a viewer, it's changed me. It's shaken me up from within. So, I presume as a filmmaker, you must be feeling pretty much the same sentiments, right?
Totally got changed many times over while making it. Each thing one's learned about it, and we had so much more time to process it than a viewer does. But yeah, I mean, there is so much here that we really need to come out and talk about.
Right. Now, I think just taking it a bit back and talking a bit more about you as a filmmaker first, before we talk about the documentary. I mean, you've done a lot of films, I think, based on a fictional setting. Like you've had What Shabd, you had Teen Patti, you've had so many movies like that, which are pretty awesome, actually, quite different for, your stereotypical commercial Hindi cinema. So I guess was making a documentary always on your mind? And why particularly the story of the Burari deaths? I mean, given the fact that it is a very prolific case in India.
So yes, as a filmmaker, I want to keep changing. I don't want to have a comfort zone. I want to keep challenging myself. So that's why I keep changing genre and I keep trying to reinvent myself as a storyteller each time. So yes, documentary was always on the list,
Mm-hmm.
but this happened by chance. There was the international team of documentary Netflix, which is coming to India. Somebody asked me, "Do you want to meet them?" And I said yes. Actually, when this case happened, I had actually thought to myself, if I ever get to do an investigative piece on this, I would love to.
Mm.
Why this case is because I knew it had things which had not come out, which were, it was again the front face which we saw and we didn't see the inside of it. Like the family that puts up the front and there is much more within.
Mm.
So I wanted to see the withins and I wanted to confront it myself as an individual to start with, because
Mm.
I think this is something that is part of all our lives. It is not a story about them. It is a story of us.
Right, right. And I guess, I mean, I know you mentioned about Netflix getting involved and stuff, but I guess what input did they have? And during the whole preparation and creation of the documentary, I presume that you had to probably understand the template of making such a style of cinema, right? Before obviously you cracked on with it.
Yes. How to even do the interviews, how to drive. So basically, not having a narrative here was the key, as opposed to doing narratives where you're in charge and you know the narrative. Here it was, I don't know anything, but I have a million questions. And I'm going to pursue every line of thought and see where it lands me and let the narrative, kind of uh, reveal itself to me.
Right.
So that was the process. And yeah, and once so Netflix basically started with a lot of support on it. They did leave us on our own to find out what it is and do the whole thing. Once we started editing, and that's where the real script writing begins, right? In documentaries. At that point, there was a lot of exchange with Netflix, and they have been extremely supportive partners because this was a very, very balanced walk the in things that we were trying to say, that we don't overstep those lines, right? If we are
Mm.
talking about the way it was covered by the media, there is a point that we could have become the same, right?
Mm.
Exploring
Mm.
it. So I think in that, the whole team and Netflix, we were constantly discussing where to let go, where to hold back. So they were extremely collaborative partners on this.
Right. Now, you raise awareness about, topics like mental health taboo within India, and the sensationalism of news as well, which again are two very rampant subjects within our society today. What do you think is the need of the hour now in terms of dealing with these issues? And do you feel a lot of conversations have happened, following the premiere of House of Secrets on Netflix?
I have to say, Anuj, I mean, I'm sure only a part, like just the surface of the reaction is reaching me. Just within that, there is so much. There is so much. There is so much discussion. I mean, people are coming out and saying things like, I know this family. I've seen these people. I've experienced this. Or just the conversation about mental health. And like I said, we've probably not even scratched the surface of it, but having a reaction to content like this with this kind of reaction, it's extremely gratifying.
Yes, yes. You know, initially when I saw the documentary and it said that there was a puja, the ritual that they were doing, I was like, oh no, is it gonna sort of poke holes at Hinduism again? Is it gonna, sort of talk about, I mean, superstition to an extent, but completely, make digs at the religion? And I was so glad that it didn't do that. So thank you, Leena, for actually not doing that, first of all, and actually just sticking to this whole idea about mental health, because I think it's
Because it's not about that. It's not about that.
Exactly. No, but exactly. But अगर agenda करना है ना तो लोग कर सकते हैं, but आपने नहीं किया. So I'm really thankful and really glad that you were very objective about what you wanted to convey and what you wanted to deliver through that documentary. But I think in hindsight, because like I said, the topics you do mention are so important, and there's so, the gravitas of them are so huge. Do you kind of feel that maybe an additional episode or two, which sort of, I guess, highlight more about the mental health situation in India in a bit more detail, and perhaps conveying maybe stories of other people like, similar to maybe what Lalit went through? Do you think maybe a few, episodes like that would have strengthened the overall storytelling?
Anuj, you should stop telling the story when people want that little more.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's the best place to stop, because I would rather leave an audience wanting that little more, because when they want that little more means the impact has been had, rather than them saying, okay, now they're going on and on about it. I think the fact that everybody's caught on to mental health and at least are having some sort of a conversation, I think we did. Of course, I think 1 million documentaries need to be made from different perspectives. This was just one aspect of it. We have to explore this with different content. We have to underline these things through different ways.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, the series is extremely unsettling to watch. I mean, and I think the visual tropes within it just enhance that disturbing element to it. I mean, especially the retelling of Lalit Chundawat's diary. I mean, the voiceover, and even A.R. Rahman's haunting soundtrack as well of the theme music. It's absolutely, it's really stirred my soul in such a way where even now I'm still haunted by those visuals. So what prompted those aspects, and how conscious were you as a filmmaker to ensure that the visual tropes were handled sensitively, but yet also had some sort of cinematic appeal as well?
The thing is, I know as a team, we were telling it from the most honest space without wanting to blow and questioning ourselves all the time. Within us, we were all the time questioning. So I knew the intent. When the intent is right, then half the things are safe. But still, you don't know, right? Till it goes out there and till people sample it. Because somewhere you do get lost within your own content. But that was constantly there with us. We took certain decisions like those diaries, because the whole episode, I wanted you to experience that. Sometimes the telling of that was not powerful enough. Like, what were these instructions? Make it a little more so that you understand, because the first question is why? Why did all of them do it? But if they were being constantly told and you've just not even experienced, like, say, 5% of what exists, what this family went through for 11 years. So decisions were taken based on that. And obviously, we were taking it with the right intent. But I'm so happy it landed with the right, reception. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. So were you ever inspired by other documentaries as well? Because like I mentioned as well, about you having to, sort of, I guess, watch and have a crash course in documentaries, I think, for this. So were you ever inspired by the sort of visual tropes that have been made, especially in other Netflix documentaries as well? Because Netflix really knows how to tell a true crime story in a very, visually gripping way as well.
Yes, the I mean, I've been watching documentaries on and off over time. I didn't do any specific study for this, but maybe, yeah, a little bit my documentary watching did go up. But I didn't want to follow anything. I wanted this story to tell me what it needed. At the end of the day, it's people, it's emotions, and it's a story to be told. I have different tools than I have in a narrative where I have actors. Now I have real people. And maybe having that is a stronger thing because it's real. Real has a power which is very different because that's what we're always trying to do in narrative. We're trying to recreate reality. And
Right.
I was getting to do this with real people who had experienced what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, and visually, again, there was just like one element which was like the big scene of the shoot, which was the 11 ambulances. And in my head, that was a visual that I wanted for death to travel through the veins of the city. That's why the shots of the roads, it's like, how could we forget this? How could we forget that this happened in the city?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm sure Rahman must have. I was really, really happy to see his name as part of the background score composers as well. So was he quite quick to agree to come on board for this as well?
Yeah, I was coming back from a shoot in mid 2020 from MP where I had interviewed the relatives, and that was, I think, one of the most emotional shoots for me. And I was listening to Rahman sir's songs throughout the way. And when we came here, I told Asim, listen, I would love to approach him to do this. I don't know whether he will. Sent him an email. He responded immediately, ended up having a 45-minute long chat with him about faith and belief and all things complicated. And he was on board. And it's been one of the most enriching. I mean, I don't need to tell you how amazing he is. It's been one of the most big gifts to this project. And getting to work with him, I've learned a lot.
Absolutely. No, I can imagine. And I think his scoring really did add that element, like I said, of soul stirring, I think, with...
Yes, and it never outdid, it was not trying to impose itself. It was so brilliantly actually creating a soundscape of emotions.
Truly, very, very well said there as well. But Leena, I think, like you said as well at the beginning, about how it's constantly changed you from within as well. And I think being the director of this series, I mean, to handle it is not easy at all. So I think it's quite brave of you to sort of handle this series. How did you cope with the emotions and reactions evoked from helming the series? I mean, it must have been quite a challenge for you to separate the sentiments from your objectivity as a filmmaker.
So, Anuj, I had like the most amazing team. I cannot take credit for doing this by myself from any standard. Every step of the way, every person associated with this, and that again is a gift that happens by, sometimes by chance, that every person was telling the same story. Otherwise, you have 5 people wanting to tell 5 different stories from that one thing. But every person, and even the difficulty, I mean, it was horrific for us in the beginning to start with, to deal with something like this as a team. But I think we were therapists to each other. We were guiding lights to each other. Everybody. I mean, if I start counting, I'm just scared. Whom will I name first and whom will I name second? But like literally the most amazing team.
And it also seems like, streaming platforms like Netflix now, I mean, because they've released a plethora of true crime documentaries on the platform as well. It almost seems like this documentary genre has become quite it's become a lot popular, more than ever, I think, on the platform as well. Do you think that's obviously due to the pandemic, the fact that there's been a lack of cinematic releases, hence documentaries have become a new way to engulf the audiences? Or do you think it's just a trend that will suddenly, sort of lose track of time and will just fade away again? What do you think is the reason why of true
I
documentaries?
think
True crime documentaries?
firstly, you're able to tell stories which are stranger, which are, and I can't imagine a fiction series on the Burari Deaths. It wouldn't have been able to do half the things that this documentary could do. So there are subjects which only documentaries can make. Secondly, I think to start with, people's idea of documentary is extremely academic and it's heavy. Like, oh my God, it's going to be this thing of information. Telling of the documentary has evolved so much. It's so much more immersive, it's so much more, it can be edge of the seat. It is. I mean, I've watched so many documentaries which are completely edge of the seat for me. So just sampling that content and realizing, oh my God, once you get over the block of, documentary is this, academic or information loaded thing. So I think people got to sample that more during the lockdown, especially in India. And then it's a matter of taste. There are people who are like, oh my God, there's a world that's opened up for me. So I don't think this as a format will ever go away, because I strongly believe that some stories which documentaries can tell best cannot be told in narratives.
It's almost like the short story medium as well, isn't it? Because that's also gained so much prominence now. And it has obviously, become a separate entity of its own almost, because of like what you said. So I can totally resonate with what you're saying there, actually. But Leena, I think there was this one not one dialogue, but one question. I think one of the reporters say in the series where, what do you call the Burari deaths? Do we call it's not a murder? It's not really a suicide either. So that question, I think, is one which will continue to haunt us in time. But and I'm pretty sure it's haunting you as well, right? I mean, have you sort of been questioning that as well throughout your life after making it?
Yes, I mean, not to that extent, because I have somewhere come to peace with the fact that there are some things that none of us will ever know. None of us will ever know. I have come to peace with that by the knowing of the fact that at least let's deal with what we know. The thing is, you can keep craving for what you didn't know, but let's first deal with this. Let's really deal with this and dig into this.
Right. So what did you discover the most about yourself? As a director and about the case itself, just to kind of follow up on what you said there. I mean, is there something which you were not expecting, or that you were not, sort of something that surprised you, I think, throughout the whole process? And what did that teach you about yourself as well as a person?
Couple of things. One is, I've always, through my content, wanted to expose the fact that we wear a different face for the outside world and we are different at the inside. And as children, we all feel we are from the worst families and everybody else is from a perfect family and the happiest families ever. And for me, the best part of growing up was that I could have these conversations and realize, okay, we all had our share, Normalizing these conversations it's a big deal for me. In whichever way that I can create content to normalize these conversations, I will. So that's a quest that I have. And I'm so happy that I was able to do that through this series. And what else? Yeah, I also learned that we cover up because somewhere dealing with the truth is more difficult.
True.
You put you put weird shapes on that and it's okay, but the real heart of it, we don't want to go there. It's okay, just cover it up and tell me what it was.
I get it, but the truth hurts, so I can understand why people do that as well, because it's sometimes easier to be comforted by a lie than to bear the sting of the truth. And I completely understand. But I think before we wrap up, Leena, is there a subject matter you'd like to explore next? And would this topic be explored through the medium of non-fictional storytelling as well?
So I want to definitely continue doing documentaries. And if any other new format comes up, that too. But I don't know exactly what I'm going to do next, because I'm just feeling like these 2 years have changed me, have changed the audience, has changed the world. I want to do something which redefines narrative, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, So I don't know. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that. I'm also searching. I'm searching right now.
Right. Well, look, Leena, you carry on searching, and I think on that searching journey, I think somewhere we're also with you as well. And I think House of Secrets, is a very life-changing documentary. I mean, quite literally, because, like I said, it shakes you from within as a human being. Seeing the pictures of that family, of such a loving family that was just disappeared, just gone, just like that. I think it is really heartbreaking, and I think it's definitely something which will always be remembered, and hopefully we learn from it as well. So a huge thank you, Leena, for joining me on Filme Shilmy today. We've been wanting to do this for quite some time, and I'm really glad that Netflix made it possible today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anuj. You take care.